Welcome back to Trip Talk Tech. We got a treat for y'all today. We get to chop it up with an inspirational author, award-winning, nationally broadcasted journalist. But the reason I'm a little geeked about today because I think our guest from my generation, I can speak for my generation. I can't speak for everybody, but the people that I came up with, I would like to consider her a pioneer in just women in tech. And I salute you on that. Me being in tech, always watch you from afar, and just salute you on that. So just help me welcome to the show, longtime friend Crystal Berger. How you
King
been
Tripp.
though? Thanks for coming on
I
the show.
I am so excited to be here. I'm like giddy because I'm like, man, we were in elementary school together.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, it's crazy how life, it comes full circle. So I'm honored to be here joining with you and thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. It's so crazy because it's like I'm geek because I get to interview the interviewer, right? I see I see you from afar and you see that thing, but we like to give our
Mhm.
guests their roses while they're here. And one thing I like to say about Crystal is just outside of the A listers that I can go on and on and on of the people that you've interviewed and touched, but I think when I realized that like Crystal really doing something out here is not only in the community because I think you would come back to Baltimore all the time and have things for our young men, youth in general, but especially the young men and the fathers. You had programs geared around to the fathers. I really thought that was dope. But outside of that, I remember when Baltimore was in this uprising and the Freddie Gray. We had the whole Freddie Gray incident going on, and everybody pictured us and painted people from Baltimore as just tough and just don't care about our neighborhoods and things like that. But working at Fox News, and we understand this. The slide that Fox News get now with the whole President Trump thing before, but working at a network with that kind of criticism at the
Mhm.
time, and they would come in with to me when you were on those panels, like kind of supporting their narrative of Baltimore, but you always stood up and try to change that narrative, try to get them to understand what we saw, what we grew up with, our reality, and it was lucky if some of us got out of that reality. And I think you always stressed that. You always gave a different look, but then you also gave resolution. Like you didn't just leave it as, "Hey, this is the problem. This is Baltimore. Baltimore trash." It's these are the issues, but this is how we can fix it. And then in those
Mhm.
conversations, they always back out and yeah, all right, Crystal, we leave you alone. But I just like I said, I just think
Mhm.
you already been stand up for our city, especially on that stage that you have, and like I said, salute. I thank you. I'm sure the city don't even know they thank you, but you know that's dope.
No, I appreciate that, Keith, because I think that that's the thing. I think we don't really realize a lot of times we can be selfish in our own bubbles. And
Mm,
then we have to really think about why we're positioned in a certain space. And I knew that, coming from Baltimore, West Baltimore, going into the number one market, being the only Black woman in my newsroom for a decade, I was there for a reason, right? And
mm,
it's funny that you mentioned the Freddie Gray whole it started like a movement as well.
mm.
But I remember being in the newsroom and we were covering, and it was every network. It wasn't just Fox. It was CNN, MSNBC. All you
Everybody.
saw was the one CVS that was burning on North Avenue, right? And I
Mm,
and I was like, my city is bigger than this, and I know that this is not the sum total of everything. And I remember
mm.
I actually, instead of taking the train down from New York, the Amtrak, I took the bus because I wanted to see all of this
What was
devastation.
going on? Mm.
So I came down and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't see nothing but one thing burnt down. And I remember
Exactly.
calling my managing editor, Keith, and I was like, hey, listen, we need to tell the story. And I was like, I have no problem with telling it from the right, but we also got to tell it from the left. And we have to really have this true, fair, and balanced conversation. So I did a special
Hmm.
on, Uprising in Baltimore. And it was one of the best specials that we did. And I just felt honored because I know that if I hadn't been in that newsroom, right,
It
no matter what
wouldn't.
people think of, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. So I thank you for acknowledging that. And it was like, I feel like still one of my greatest accomplishments being at the network for sure.
Definitely, and like I said, that's when I knew, like, okay, it just it wasn't just about a career, right? It
Mm,
wasn't just about you. We all advanced, and again, I'm still rooting for you. Your brother. We all everybody. We root for everybody that kind of get out. But like I said, that was a little different. That showed again that this was bigger than you. This was bigger than the cause. And then it's crazy because I look at that connection back to your book, right? That
mm-hmm.
that's what you're saying back in the book, the same message. So again, if you haven't realized that, I'm sure it's your life. But just looking at it, you're really living that what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, right? Like I remember being growing up in the rec centers, right? Because my parents were divorced and my mom worked 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. So like the rec centers were like my babysitters, and so I was at
Mhm.
Fred B. Paddock, I was out Cherry Hill, I was at Lakeland, and like them ladies, they ain't play. Like it wasn't no faking. Like you could be dolled up, you could whatever, right? You could have on your Reeboks and your bamboos, but at the end of the day, you still you. And
Mhm.
I think it would just be a disservice to a lot of my mentors like Sharon Bogues, Linda Davis. I mean, a lot of these people who people don't even know who they are, right?
Nope. Nope.
But Tracy Estep, all these people, my mom, like all of these people
Mhm.
were in the backgrounds making us be accountable for who we are. And so
Right.
to like think that you can leave that and be unattached to it, it's just very inauthentic to me. And it's just not how I
Mhm.
was raised. And so I just felt like I knew that going into news is a career, but it wasn't about that. It was really about the access to opportunities, to information, to people, so that I could then bring that back and make some level of a difference in my own way in the community. And so, yeah, I kind of didn't think about it, right? It's just like this is what you do. Because that's what they did for us, right? You played ball
Right.
in the centers and stuff. Like you knew that,
Exactly.
okay, if you cut up, it wasn't just about you
No
being in the
ball.
center, right? Like you
uh,
go, you gonna be
ain't
someone they
happening.
gonna pull up on you like Tripp. What you doing? you know.
And you
So
going to
yeah,
practice, and you doing layups, and you ain't playing.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Speaking about coming up, like that dream about being a journalist, like where did that come from? Because you was always taught, you can hoop. I see you hooping a little bit, so
A little something. I wasn't
Just
good though, Keith. I wasn't good. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't real good at but
but see back at Fred B. Live, you could block my shot. I was like
this is
two
true.
two 2 foot tall, and you was like 5. So yeah.
See, so you know the real. That's what I'm saying. People know the real story, right? Keith knows the real story. Man, listen, I realized early that once the girls start getting rough around middle school and like they wasn't playing with the elbows, and I was like, oh no, nah, this ain't
Not to
this ain't
say.
this ain't it for me. But it's funny. Very early on, I always knew like I had and from being in the centers, I used to like to dance, being in talent shows and stuff.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until high school when Teen Summit came on, and I was always tall and skinny, so I wasn't like the pick of the dudes, right? Like, what, I ain't had a little cute little black girl shape and all of that. It's fine, I know. But but I mean, in essence, I had my own issues, with that, but
Hmm.
I didn't really realize that I could be on TV until I saw Teen Summit, and Ananda Lewis came on, and she was brown and she was like
Hmm.
skinny, and I was like, damn, like, okay, if she's doing it, I can do it. And I
Okay.
remember, when she interviewed, I think it was Tupac. And I was like crazy Tupac fan. And I was like, yo, this is what I want to do. If I can interview Tupac, I want to do
I'm
this.
good.
So that was the first introduction to like, okay, what is this? And I wrote in my journal when I was like 14 or 15, I want to be like that girl on BET. I didn't even know it was a
Wow.
journalist or a host. I just knew it was something that I really wanted to do.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
And and like now, like I said, I mean, I've seen your interviews or heard your interviews, Ricky Smiley, the Russell Westbrooks, Enos Canner. I mean, the list go on and on and on and on. I mean, Stephen
Mm.
Covey. I was like, oh, okay, the big time. But do you ever go back sometimes and just kind of like pinch yourself at night, like
Mm.
this is really happening, like
Mm.
this is real.
I think what kind of solidified it for me, I was hosting an event at the United Nations headquarters in New York.
Mm,
And it was for literal kings and queens from around the world, right? Called Voices of African Mothers. And the princess of Saudi Arabia came up to me. She had diamonds like the size of my fist or whatever.
wow.
And she walked up to me and she was like, "You are absolutely amazing." And I was like, "Yo, I'm from West Baltimore." And it was like I had this outer body experience, like, wow, I'm really here, with royalty. And I think that was the biggest moment for me because I had on like a gold dress and I was like
Mhm.
hosting, and people wanted to talk to me and they were just like,
Wow.
"Oh, the work you're doing at the network is amazing." And I was just like, this is like not even real.
Right.
So I think that was my biggest pinch myself moment, because one
Mhm.
thing with like interviewing, like, and I mean, I have really interviewed some of the biggest names in entertainment, sports, media. I always like to look at people's stories because, it's like their accolades are one thing, right? You could read about those all day, every day. But like when you
Mhm.
really get into the story of somebody, it's like that's what makes them amazing. And
Exactly.
so yeah, so I think that I haven't had that many pinch myself moments because it's just like when you're going, you're just in it and you got to make it happen. But I
Mhm.
think that UN event, I was like, this is unbelievable. So yeah, I've pinched
Wow.
myself a couple times.
It,
Mm,
so if I'm out there and I want to be a journalist, like I'm 15 and I got that same dream like Crystal, how do I go about it? Is it college? Is it can I go a different route with all of these media outlets? You know,
mm.
what's
Um,
available to me?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great, great question because I think that the traditional route or entry into media is different, than what it was 10, 15, even 20 years ago, right? So some
Okay.
people can take the traditional route, like you can go to college, you can intern at a local station, network as much as possible. I think the consistent theme of what I'm going to say is always networking, no matter which route you take, because they say, your network determines your net worth, right?
Yes.
But you can go to college, you can intern at a local station, and then kind of work your way up through the markets, right? And go to whatever market you want to land in, right? So that's one way.
Mhm.
The other way is you can be like a content creator, right? So many platforms, especially because of COVID, they look for independent content creators to contribute to their platform. So if you can do the multimedia piece, meaning you can edit, you can write, you can book your own guests, and you can host the content and package it, and then
Mhm.
like position it with a network or a platform or partner. That's another
Mhm.
way.
Okay.
But my route was so non-traditional. Like when I got out of college, I was a high school English teacher in DC for a couple of years. Then I went to law school for a year. Then I had a business. So my journey
Wow.
was all over the place because I didn't have those mentors, right? And so I think that
Mhm.
that theme of networking and mentorship is critical, because if I had someone to mentor me, maybe my journey would have been shorter, right? I don't think it would have been better, right? But it probably would shorter, because for me, the way I got into this is crazy. And I think this is the other route, and like just doing it. I was taking a business planning class in Baltimore. At this time, I was unemployed. I had just
Mhm.
failed out of law school. I had like 32 cents in the bank. I was living with my father. My Jaguar had got just repossessed. All whatever you could think of was happening in my life.
It's happening,
It was happening, right? It wasn't looking
huh?
cute at all. And
Mhm.
I was on unemployment. I was on unemployment. And a guy who sat next to me in this program, because it was called Women Entrepreneurs of Baltimore, but it was for minority business owners. He came in and he was like, "Crystal, you're an attractive young woman." He was starting a digital online magazine, right?
Okay.
And so he says, to me, he says, I got an interview with some of the Baltimore Ravens and I need someone to go host it. I'll be the camera guy. I just need you to do it. And I was like, well, they're rich and I'm broke and I want to do this anyway, so why not? Right. So I went down to Full Moon Barbecue, Ray Lewis's old spot. My
Okay.
very first interview was with Ray Lewis. So I'm sitting there, no experience, Keith. You can Google it. I think that interview has like 100,000 views on it or something at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was interviewing a Super Bowl MVP as my first interview, and you
Wow.
know, I remember doing it and thinking I'm really messing up, but also I was like, yo, this is it. Like, this is what I wanted to do since I was 15, and this is why everything else hasn't worked out. So from
Hmm.
there, all the other Ravens started hitting me like, hey, I'm having this sickle cell awareness event. I'm having this private event. Come host it, come host it. So I started
Oh, that's
hosting,
dope.
yeah, all of these events. And I remember saying to myself, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it,
Hmm.
and I looked at trying to get internships, but at this point I had been out of college so long that everybody was saying, well, Crystal, you need to be getting college credit for this. So I found a
Hmm.
local broadcasting school. They're no longer open, but the Broadcasting Institute of Maryland, BIM,
Hmm.
went to them. So I was going to BIM in the daytime. I'm sorry, I was running my business in the daytime. I was going to BIM midday. So I would go to BIM from 4 to 7, and then I would leave there and I would
Hmm.
intern at WJZ at night in their sports department, because their sports department was the only department that was running content that late. So I was in there cutting tape with Mark Viviano and all of this kind of stuff. It was crazy, man. But I was having like 14-hour days, but I knew that's what I needed to do to make it happen. And once I finished my internship, I was like, yo, I'm going to either New York, LA, or Chicago, the top 3 markets. And so I just started hounding people out at networks in those 3 markets, and it just opened
Boom.
up, for Fox. Yeah, man. So crazy.
That's what's up. And like you said, you went down that journey, and you know, you got to a point in life where you felt like, like what else could go wrong? But one part about that is, sometimes in those moments, like you're saying, that's where you birthed this. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It came right out of it, and like you said, and you knew with certainty. It sounded like after
Mm,
that time too.
mm,
It wasn't no more with lawyer this that the third. It was this is where
mm,
I'm at, and that's
mm.
just a good point. I don't want people to miss, like, how was that feeling when you probably got
Mm.
to that lowest point? Can you in words even describe that?
Absolutely. It was suicidal. Like, it was traumatic, like it was
Mhm.
like, yo, I want something different from my life, I
Mhm.
don't want to struggle, I don't want to be a single mother. I don't want to figure out be living check to check, like
Mhm.
all of that was happening in my life. And, like I said, I was living with my dad for the first time, like since I was a little girl, since I was like 7. And so I was like healing from a lot of that, and I just
Mhm.
remember laying in a bed in tears. And I'm gonna tell you, it was the journal. Like that journal, Keith, like I remember
Mhm.
flipping through my journal because I was like, I ain't really for being here on earth in this space, right? Like I ain't really
I
here for
get
being,
you.
on the planet in this space. And I remember flipping through my journal and I
Mhm.
read those words on that paper about what I really wanted to do with my life,
Mhm.
and I cried. Like I cried. I probably cried for like
Wow.
a week. And then, the guy came into class and it was like God just opened it up for me to do that. And so I mean it it's a thing of we look to do what's makes sense, right? Oh, well, if you're
Mhm.
going to be a teacher, you're going to get a check. And there's nothing wrong with being a teacher if that's what you love doing. Like, if that's what you're
Yeah.
committed to doing and you're passionate about it and this is your purpose, then that's one
Dope.
thing. But, do it, right? But if you know you
Mhm.
have a unique gift, like I believe that I was created, tall and brown for a reason, right? Being different,
Mhm.
standing out, right? And it wasn't
Yep.
just to be in a classroom, and so it was one of those moments as well. Keith, where I had to just really look inside of myself and be like, yo, what were you gifted to do? Like, I remember
Mm-hmm.
being a little girl, and even in Beachfield, I wrote my first book in Beachfield. I used to write plays. I always loved writing. It was something I did, in my journal when my parents, it was just something that came to me naturally. I remember my friends would come to me and write their essays in college. And so I was like running from something that I was already like innately created to do, And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that whole moment, like, though it was low, it was like, do you believe in yourself enough to know that you can make anything happen that you desire to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And once I started to believe that, I started to attract that, right? And I think when we're on our journeys to live in our purpose, if you don't fully believe that you can make happen the thing that you dream about doing, you'll never attract it in its fullness,
Nope.
But once you start rocking out, like, yo, I really can do this. Like, I'm really amazing. I'm gonna make it happen. You'll attract every single opportunity that you deserve and that you desire. And so for me, though it was a low moment, like I was depressed, I was sad, I was losing weight, all of that. But even in that, I still realized that I had something that I needed to give to the world. And so, to sum this up, this part of the conversation, one of my favorite quotes that I have for myself is, your process perfects your purpose, right? And so you can go through all of these different experiences and all these different journeys, but remember that every part of your process is going to make your purpose even better,
True
And
that.
so
True
that
that.
that that for me is kind of where I am with it, yeah, and that experience.
And like I was saying earlier, it sounds like all of those experiences tie right back to your book. And and again, did that just that's why you became the author, or was it
Mm.
just you start looking over those memoirs and like, man, let me share this story.
Yeah, it was just that, exactly what you just said. I had gotten asked to speak at a conference, because I never had like a desire to be like a published author. Like that wasn't like something I wanted to do on my to-do list.
Mhm.
But I had gotten asked to do this conference of like
Yeah.
2,000 women, and the conference coordinator, she said, "Well, Crystal, will you be selling anything?" And I was like, well, "I guess I'm gonna be selling something, right?" And I didn't know what it was I was gonna be selling, right? So thought about it, and I remember again, I've always been a journaler, right? So I remember writing in my journal, and as I'm writing in my journal, Keith, I'm like having this epiphany, and it's crazy.
Mm.
I started flipping back through old entries, and I was looking at some of the experiences that I had growing up. And I was like, well, what would I have told the 15-year-old Crystal, or the 20-year-old Crystal, or the 25-year-old Crystal? And
Wow.
I was like, yo, this is what I would have did. And so I took like different things from my journey and kind of just summed up pieces of my story, and then
That's
just like
dope.
gave myself advice, so that, and in writing it, I thought I was just writing it for like younger women because that's what the conference was for.
Mhm.
But I've had everyone. My uncle, he's 75, Vietnam vet, struggled with addiction. And
Mhm.
one day he pulled me up at the cookout and was like, baby girl, your book really inspired me in some of my toughest
That's
times.
what's up.
And yeah, man. And so it really was just like, what do you tell people when they low, or when they can't figure it out? And being able to be something that people could put in their back pocket, throw it in their book bag, pull it out, kind of like, break in case of emergency kind of situation. Yeah, that's how it came about. And I don't read it often. Like, I probably read my book
Mhm.
maybe 3 times, but every time I read it, I'm like, wow, you've come a long way, and everything was for a reason. Everything was for a
Definitely.
reason. Hmm. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, and I agree with you. I think, like you said, I think that might have been your target audience, but to your point, I think it's relatable from a standpoint. It's life, right? We all go through those
Mm.
times where, I mean, I read the first part and it's just like hit home because you go through those periods where everybody else seems to see everything you do so great and everything should be so whatever, and for
Mm.
whatever reasons, for whatever your internals just not there. And I think to kind of know somebody else was there, and then kind of the steps they took, I think definitely that'll be helpful. So see again,
Hmm.
there you go, giving back, giving back. Now
You
look,
know, but I think.
Huh? Go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, I think also one of the things too, right? Working in
Hmm.
TV and in media, radio, even in film, you
Hmm.
realize that most of this stuff isn't real. You know what I'm saying? Like, is what people make it out to
Think
be. Yeah,
exactly. And,
and mhm.
now go.
No, and I think just being able to know, like I think making that bridge for people, right? Because people will see a certain lifestyle and they'll think it's unattainable, but they don't know the backstory, of
Hmm.
this person. They only see the glitz, they only see the sexy parts of their life. And it's like, man, before J Lo was J Lo performing at the Super Bowl, J Lo was on the six train. You understand? Like, like she was on the six train. And like that's the thing that I want people to realize of every race, of every social and
Hmm.
economic background. Like everybody has that six train moment. Whether you want to embrace it or not, whether you come from access and wealth, everybody has that moment where they sitting and they're looking at their life and they're like, I need something more. I need to do more. I need to be better. I need to have more impact. And so, yeah, that's what it's all about.
And
Mm,
definitely, like you said, even people that say never even went through those quote unquote tough moments like we might have
mm.
been through, even when they got it like that, it's something going to hit you in the back of your head because it's just like life is
Life.
unstable. Yeah, life
Mm,
life is just unstable. Now, I
mm,
was watching a while back an interview with David Letterman and Melinda Gates, and she was just talking about the need for her push to put more females in tech. I think she's been given to a lot of HBCUs for that purpose.
mhm,
But like I said earlier, again in the first part of the interview, I think he definitely a pioneer on that side, and I would just say what things would you maybe recommend for other females and not just females?
mhm.
I would say anybody, thinking of tech oriented fields. I know some people just like, that's too much. I'd rather not. I just do what I know how to do. But, can you
Mhm.
share some enlightenment that is some skill there too?
Absolutely. The first thing is get over the intimidation.
Hmm.
I hate math. I'll say it with conviction. Like I never like I was a biology major when I went into college. I
Hmm.
dropped out of my major because I couldn't get past my math classes. Like so, who would have thought some odd years later I would be circling back and being in like a STEM profession, right? So I would say
Yeah.
get over that, right? Get over that, right? Like if you can be innovative, like Steve Jobs says, innovation is the thing that distinguishes the leaders from the followers, right? And
Hmm.
so, if you can solve a problem, right, in your field and do it manually, I say take the next step and think about, well, how could I incorporate tech to solve the same problem, right? And build it, right? And so I always believe that you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, right? And
Hmm.
so if you don't know it, surround yourself with people who do know it, so that you can either learn it from them, or you can create a space to bring all of the pieces of the puzzle together. And so that's the other piece of it. When I decided to create and develop the technology, which was birthed out of the lack of diversity in media spaces and being able to create an automated solution for that.
Hmm.
I remember starting working with a couple of folks at Google, and I was like, yo, these dudes gotta be getting over on me. Like they're not being being fully transparent, right? And
Hmm.
so I started doing research, and I found the General Assembly, they had classes on product management, project management, coding. So I took all of those classes, right?
Hmm.
And half the time I didn't know what the hell these people were talking about, scripts and all this, whatever. But I knew that I wanted to create this thing, right? And I
Hmm.
knew that I had the system in my mind. I just needed the people that could automate the system for me. But in order
Hmm.
to do it efficiently, I needed to know something about the industry. So I started Googling, taking classes, and then I started to just surround myself with people. I was going to tech conferences, a tech conference that really changed and positioned this technology. I went to Black Women Talk Tech, and I was
Hmm.
there covering it actually, an article, a
Wow.
piece I wrote, turning adversity into opportunity for this digital platform called Bold TV. And I wrote an article, but anyway, I'm in this conference.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy is on the stage. He venture capitalist, invests in a few technologies, and he's talking about how to get people behind your tech. And he was like, "Well, if you can service the individual, that's cool. If you can service a group, that's even better. But if you can service the enterprise, then you hitting it at all ends, and VCs are going to be excited to invest or back your product." And so as
Mm-hmm.
he's saying this, I'm like, "Yo, what I want to create is services all three, and." I ended up, and again, this is where the unapologetic piece of knowing like your purpose in something.
Mm-hmm.
I took a picture of him and what he said. I quoted him and I tagged him on Instagram. He DM'd me. And when he DM'd me, I said, "Hey, I'm writing this piece for this platform. I would love to quote you." He said, "Sure." He said, "And if you ever need anything else, hit me up." I said, "Well, actually,
Glad you
I do need
asked.
that's right. I do need something. And so I told him really briefly a little bit about the idea because he hadn't signed the NDA yet. And he was like, "Well, why don't you come down to because I was in New York at the time." He said, "Why don't you come down to Tyson's Corner, pitch to me. My attorney will be there." So I had them sign the NDA and everything, pitch to them. They loved it and they built my MVP for me. And
Wow.
so just by being in the space, right? And you have to intentionally position yourself in these spaces. You got to go to the white conferences, right? You got to go to the conferences where people be looking at you like, "What you doing here?" And you got to be okay with that, because that a lot of times is where you'll get your opportunity. So I think a long way to answer your question was, I just saw that it was that I could be a solution to a problem, and I knew that
Mm-hmm.
technology would be the way to solve it. And so I then just surrounded myself with people that could build it because that wasn't in not necessarily my skill set.
And you dropped a bunch of nuggets in there, like you said. You got to surround yourself in the place you want to be. Like you
Mhm.
said, whatever you want to call it, white conference, whatever conference, it's industry leading conferences. Get there because that's where the people in the industry going to be. You gotta get over yourself, and if that's
Mm,
what you know what I mean. If that's what you want to do, you gotta be where the sharks are. So I
man.
definitely I definitely see
Listen, Keith, that ego is a killer. That ego,
yeah.
ego is a killer. Like you gotta be okay with like I got to the point where I was in my circles and I'm like, "Yo, I don't want to know everything."
You got
I want somebody to sow something into me.
and what you don't understand with that is being the smartest person in the room, and I know where it claim to be that, but I'm just saying, always being that guy or that girl,
Mm,
you're going to run out of energy. Nobody's filling your tank up, so you
absolutely.
got to take a break. Now, one thing you said in there is like you get these ideas, and I don't want that point to get lost because a lot of people don't do this. I see this a lot too. They have a
Mm.
great tech idea, give it away. NDA. Can you let them know what that is a little bit real quick? No, non-disclosure. Let them know what that is.
Listen, come on, get your non-disclosure agreements and your non-competes ready to go. This where the militant side of Crystal comes out. My dad's family, right? They were
Hmm.
tobacco sharecroppers in the South, right? When tobacco was
Wow.
popping, like when everybody was smoking cigarettes, right?
Hmm.
And because they were positioned in an indebted system, they created all of these systems where a lot of white families became multimillionaires, if not billionaires, off of the crops
Wow.
that we were growing and cultivating, right? And
Hmm.
I think about the ingenuity of my grandfather, who his mom was a slave, right?
Hmm.
Literally a slave.
Wow.
He could not read. He ended up
Wow.
acquiring 14 acres of land. He ended up buying his family out of debt or whatever. But even looking at everything that he did as an innovator and how
Hmm.
he didn't even make a third, right, of
Of
what
what he
he
deserved.
deserved because he didn't own his intellectual property. He couldn't. It was illegal
Hmm.
for him to even be able to have any rights in the South at that time, right? And
Wow.
so I look at that and, I was very diligent about getting those. I do not have not one conversation about my technology without having an NDA signed and a non-compete. But outside of that, I also, one of those moments, this wasn't in journalism, but it was in tech where I had like this pinch yourself moment, like you talked about,
Hmm.
when I filed for my patent. Like, so I have a patent pending, with listen, with the U.S. government, and that for me was like a thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, to patent, you know, anything, and you know, I do believe my patent will get approved, but you know, to patent anything is like, yo, like you're an inventor. And
Mm-hmm.
I think about how many people of color, specifically Black people, invented so much that makes our society move, right? That they never got
Mm-hmm.
credit for, that they never got paid for. And so, I encourage people, don't be afraid to share your ideas. Just make sure that you protect your ideas. And you can do
Exactly.
that very simply. There's so many templates. I would always advise to hire an attorney because I do have an intellectual property attorney.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if you can't afford that, go on Google and get something on paper. And if anything, you put that line in there that says, if any of my ideas, right, that you were not privy to before our conversation become a part of any invention that you create, I own it. You know, even if that's the line you got to put in there, then do that if you can't afford to get someone to protect your rights or your interests. But yeah, man, like once you got that NDA, share your ideas. You never know who's gonna be willing to support you and help you get it off the ground.
I'm telling you, that's $1 million gem because again, the thing is where we come from, right? We not trusting. We not trusting anybody too much
Mhm.
or anything. So if we got something hot, I'm not going to tell. But again, when I don't tell anybody, you're not going to get any funding.
Absolutely.
Do it right. Protect yourself. We just try and help you get what you try and get out here. Now
Mm.
you said one thing. You saw a need out there and you attacked it. You attacked it with this EBO website, the executive booking online. So
Hey,
tell us about that a little bit. That's what
come
excites
on,
me. So
come on.
how does it work? You got it all automated. How do it work? Now
Mhm.
can I sign up and get TO or somebody?
Absolutely, you can. You can sign up.
Yeah. I'm trying to grow a little something, so I'm
That's
trying to be a
it.
I'm trying to be a customer. I have to be on a commercial. I'm not only a
Yes.
client.
Yes. Sign up. Yeah, man. Like it's crazy. Like I said, you know, I was in the newsroom for almost a decade, and
Mhm.
I was the only Black woman in my newsroom the entire time. And in that space, what I realized was it wasn't necessarily I mean, people talk about conscious bias, unconscious bias, whatever term you want to put on it. All I
Mhm.
know is that a lot of people that were getting featured on air were simply coming from the same person's Rolodex over and over and over and over again. And I was
Mhm.
like, yo, there are so many more qualified, dope, amazing contributors in every industry across the globe outside of that person's Rolodex. So why aren't we accessing them? And I realized it was because there was no one in the room to bring them in, like me, you know? And so then I started to think, well, Crystal, what happens when you're no longer in the room? How will these people get access to these platforms? So, you know, whether it was me booking people for my news feature or for my podcast, or even as a producer booking content contributors for the platform, I was like, you know, one, not only is there a lack of, you know, diverse perspectives and conversations because there's no one bringing folks in, but also I
Mhm.
was like, there's an easier way to do this. You know, like we're doing it the 1995 way. And so as I was in this place, in this space, I was just thinking, how can we do this better? How can it be more broad? How can more people have access to opportunities? And so I just started to automate my mind, man. Like the way I was doing it, it was very efficient. It was very quick, you know,
Mhm.
quick. And it also was covering a broader range of perspectives. And so I started to just write down my processes. And it was crazy because the book ties into this. The way I started to get this bug for technology wasn't until of recent. Um,
Mhm.
I was really initially trying to figure out a way to make my book, like all the affirmations and quotes and stuff in my book, an app. And but I really couldn't figure out how to monetize it, right? Like, and I mean, at the
Mhm.
end of the day, I mean, I like giving back in some ways, but like I need to get paid.
God
And
pay
so
bills.
so I'm like, listen, if I'm gonna create a technology, right, I'm gonna get that bread. Like you don't go into tech
Yeah.
to be like broke. Like you go into tech to make money. You go into to tech to not only be innovative, but you do it to create one of the only ways that specifically Black people can actually create some level of generational wealth is through invention, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
innovation, as they say it, or it's through real estate, or it's through inheritance, right? So most of the
Mm-hmm.
folks I know ain't inheriting nothing, right? And this is statistically, like, you could find the data on this, right? We not like when they say, "Oh, my daddy left me was alone," right? So
Alone.
you know, so it's like going into this in this space, right? I knew that media, you can make some money. It depends on how you position it, but if you create a technology, like, you're going to create wealth. And so all that to say, to answer your question, EDO is there, expertbookingsonline.com. People can go, they can sign up, you can fill out a free form. It's a little video you can watch to figure out what it is, to see if you are eligible to get vetted, because we are bringing on people that can go onto national platforms, radio, television, virtual broadcasts around the world. And one thing that was beautiful about COVID, as I was seeing this happen, I was like, yo, this is the time right now for this
Right
technology.
now. Right
Right
now.
now. And I was like, I just pulled up my, what they say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I said, well, we gonna do this. And yeah, so that's what it is. And it's a platform. Also, the broader vision of it is I am going to do something here in Baltimore, an
Okay.
initiative, yeah, where like the 10 pillars of technology, everything from automation to virtual reality, all those different, the 10 prongs of that. I want to be able to create a space where people can come from different corporations, different industries, and figure out how they can incorporate that into their industry, like via the tech realm. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually going to be working with the Chamber of Commerce here in Baltimore to do that. So the broader vision is to be able to go into cities like our hometown and really see the opportunity that exists, and engaging with different agencies like workforce development agencies, and
Mm-hmm.
even some school systems on the post secondary level, and say, hey guys, send your most talented people who wouldn't mind being employees and growing and scaling with a company, but giving them the opportunity to create or innovate their industry, and then they own a portion of the patent that they create for this actual entity. So the employer wins as well as the employee. And so that's what I see myself doing on a broader scale with this.
Yeah, I see the same thing at work, even at my full time. Like, having those ideas, and like you're saying, it'll be good to have that kind of that conduit where it's like, hey, if I give you this idea, you make millions, because I know this is going to change your industry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have the tools, I have an idea. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
business. So.
Absolutely. And the thing is that most of the people that have the ideas don't have the capital or access to the capital. So it's a
Mhm.
win-win for both, right? So the employer can say, well, commit that particular person to a certain amount of time. It's what people have been doing forever, right? And then
Ever,
saying,
yeah.
okay, but we'll give you we'll incentivize this by, letting you have some level of ownership, because then you want to continue to grow and scale with the company, while you also
Mhm.
create some level of wealth for your family and your legacy as well. So, man, listen, it's wide open out here, like,
It
and
is. It is.
like, Keith, like, if folks aren't, and it's for Black people, because I'm speaking to my folks right now.
All right.
It's a unique time in society for you to be heard and for you to be supported.
Mhm.
People are
Definitely.
actively engaging and supporting Black narratives, Black missions, Black vision. And if you don't, and I hate when I hear people say, well, I don't want to be the token. I don't give a damn about being the token. Like, I know at the end of the day, my intention and what I'm going to do with being the token. So if going
Mhm.
into an environment and getting what you already deserve means that
Mhm.
someone labels you as a token, but you can change your community, you would be a fool not to do it. So, if
Mhm.
anything, I want people to really take advantage of all of this funding that's being put behind Black innovators, right? That's being put behind, Black girls that code, or I know what's his name? From Baltimore, Russell Simmons' cousin, Kevin Liles. He
Kevin
had,
Liles.
yeah, he had minority minority makers or something like that, where he was mentoring like 300 young men from Morgan State and helping them get into science, technology, engineering, and math, right? And so, if you're not taking advantage of these opportunities while they're present, you're foolish, right? Because it's the time to kind of be able to capitalize on what's happening in society. And though the circumstances that have led up to it, weren't necessarily positive, why not eat while you can? Because I personally don't know how long this movement to supporting Black causes and Black innovation, how long that's going to last. So I just think the time is now for us to get on that bandwagon and take advantage of it.
And to your point, that's a national thing. So that's not just a B-more if you're in New York or wherever you are. You know what I mean? That's
Yep.
national. So check that out wherever you are, because again, like what she's saying, that those programs are out there. So,
Mm-hmm.
man, Crystal, I appreciate you so much. This has been fun chopping it up with you. Just
Yes.
just giving us major gems and writing books, websites. You got anything else coming up? You just said you're coming to Baltimore, maybe with some classes, but what else you got going on? Any philanthropy going on out that way?
Well,
Well,
I'm always.
I'm about to say your work is philanthropy, but
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I did a mission trip to Haiti in 2018, where we were putting water systems in some communities in Haiti, and I want to do more of that kind of work. But right now, honestly, Keith, I want to get this tech launched. I want to get people signed up. I want to get people engaged. And I'm always doing stuff behind the scenes that I don't really talk about, as far as like
understood,
help,
understood.
like helping folks however I can. But you will definitely be one of the first to know once the initiative comes
But
to Baltimore, because I would love for you to be engaged in what you're
okay,
doing and see how we can collaborate. But man, this is good. I'm proud of you. I'm
I
excited for what you're
appreciate it.
doing.
It
Yeah, it's crazy.
Same thing, man. Just giving back. Somebody took a chance, and like you said,
Mm-hmm.
those mentors showed me something different, something I
Mm-hmm.
never knew was a lane out there. And then when I got it, I saw the world. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah,
like you said, you sit down and you start like, okay, it's not about the money, it's not about this. What's my purpose? And you know
mm,
what? Same thing. I give it back. You know what I mean? Hopefully, it helps somebody else. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think one
It-
thing that was just on my heart, I just wanted to acknowledge too, I am committed to like Black fatherhood. I love to see what you've done with your son, and
Thank you.
that's a great thing. A lot of us from our generation didn't grow up with our dads in the home, and
Mhm.
I commend all of the Black men out there raising strong Black men, especially in today's
Definitely.
society. So I will get more engaged in bringing some of those programs back, because I just think fathers need support as well as moms, because there are a lot of Black fathers out here doing their thing. So yeah, just keep being an example, man, and keep making, like you said, making us proud as well.
I appreciate it. Shout out to James Tripp. I gotta say, my daddy was a good daddy.
Hey, come on, daddy. Come on, daddy.
All right, last question I gotta ask you. I ask
Mm,
everybody on the show this before we go, and you from Zone 29, right with me, so I know you're a sneakerhead. What is it? What's your favorite pair of kicks? Sneakers, or you be in them A-list videos, so you you, you can put the pumps in there too if you
Come
want,
on.
but
I mean, listen, I love me a good shoe. I'm gonna tell you, because I love me a good shoe, but I would say it's weird. I'm like a Puma girl. Like
okay,
I
all
love,
right,
yeah, like I kind of love Pumas. Like you could get a cute little Puma with, a nice little workout outfit, a cute little cap. And so I'm all about like coordination. so,
okay, okay. So
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 but
you,
I'm tell you, Keith, I never had a pair of Jordans in my life.
we might have to do something about that. We might have to do something about that.
Hey.
Hey, look, we gonna have to do a feature, unbox feature with CBS
TV
inspired.
inspires. Come on, look, give me my Jordans, Keith.
Yeah, we gotta
Jordan.
work on that. We gonna have to work on sizes in the email. Hey, Crystal. I just want to thank you so much. Thank you for what you do, just in general. Thank you for being on the show. Like I said, hey, and call me when you get a chance, or just let me know, not necessarily what you're doing over there, but even just
Mm,
maybe even other resources, out that way.
yeah,
Maybe,
man,
yeah, man.
absolutely. Yeah, let's stay
And we can
connected.
chop it up
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, for sure we
Definitely.
will.
Hey,
Hey.
I wish you luck, nothing but the best with EBO. Hey, look, I'm gonna sign up because I need some bookings. I'm kind of
That's
bad over
it.
here. Help me out. Help
Zay,
me
sign
out.
up today.
All right,
Sign up
I'm going.
today.
I'm doing that. Look, y'all hear this? Jordan Zan signed up. It's tough life. Go after what you want in life, but they never said it'd be easy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, Crystal. Hey, I appreciate you. You have a good one. Much success. All right.
All right, for sure. Thanks for having me. See you
All
soon.
right. Good
All
luck.
right.